What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So before I get into this video, I want to give a big shout out to the man, the myth, the legend, the brother Robert Mason coming through with the donation to the channel once again via the PayPal. Much respect to him for showing love to Too Raw for TV. So I want to tell you guys, first of all, I want to thank all of you who tuned into the earlier live I did talking about the Hells Angels, that rumor, which increasingly seems to be a farce. I want to thank all of the participants, in particular the individual running for local office there in the Aurora, Colorado area. I want you to try to keep in touch, and I want you to succeed. And I want to let you know that uh, the conversation I had with him has influenced me enough to make this particular video. That and what happened in California recently. So we all are aware of the fact that recently the California State Legislature passed House Bill AB 1840, which will give undocumented migrants in a state up to $150,000 of California taxpayer money for them to live out their, quote, American dream of owning a home. And it's not just it's not rumor, it's not a fake news. This has been confirmed. This has really gone on. House Democrats passed this. As a matter of fact, the former Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, confirmed this on Bill Maher's show Real Time. I did a video about that, I think it was yesterday, or day before yesterday, one of the two. So this is the thing. People can come into this country undocumented. I have no problems with immigration. As I said before, my grandparents and great-grandparents came over here from the Caribbean. So there's nothing wrong with immigrants. America is a melting pot. America is based on people coming in from other countries. And I'm also acutely aware of the stigma of lighter complected immigrants coming in versus this perception that if you're brown, somehow you don't belong. Screw those racist mother, you know what. This is not about that. This is about people coming into this country, number one, illegally, and number two, automatically leapfrogging black people who have historically been screwed over by the dominating peoples. When I say dominating, I mean by numbers, and those controlling the federal and state governments for the most part. We've always been discriminated against and last in the pecking order and getting crumbs where everyone else getting fat off of huge slices of apple pie with the custard and cherries and all of the goodies. We got to barely survive with sustenance with crumbs. Most of us don't even have, and I'm talking about black people, we don't have generational. And I also want to make a point that even though I'm primarily talking about black people, because I'm black. I'm not going to make any apologies for that. I'm black, so because of that, I'm concerned about this. But I do want to state that, yeah, there are people who are American-born Hispanic who don't like what's going on. And there are people who are born here who are impoverished or come from a poor background who are white. And these people are going to leapfrog all of us. They're just getting here. It's not going to be a building a generation. They're going to leapfrog all of us. These are people who are going to be our bosses. They're going to be in a situation where their economic status is going to be in the six-figure digits, all because of the fact that they're being used as political pawns, but being well compensated by the Democratic Party for the most part, especially in California, although it is to a certain extent in some areas a two-party thing. But here we are. The constituency has been the most loyal in numbers. The only monolith, damn near, and when it comes to voting, although we're really not a monolith, 80 to 90% for 60 years. And what do we get? Nothing. But this is the last straw, man. So while that has just been passed, and California taxpayers are going to have to foot the bill for this, California Democrats just killed a reparations bill. And this bill would have, from what I've been able to read, would have compensated Black Californians who are descendants of slaves. As we all know, really, honestly, the most accurate studies have shown that if you really look at what is owed to the American slave, and not just slaves, but also through the Jim Crow era, being underpaid, and sometimes silent slavery still going on all the way to the 1940s. When you include inflation, the real amount that's owed to Black Americans exceeds $65 trillion. I remember reading a study that showed that the average Black person that lives in Boston has $8 in the bank, while the average white person or white family, matter of fact, let me rephrase that. The average Black family in Boston had $8 in the bank, while the average white family in Boston had over $220,000 in the bank. Now, I'm not saying something should be just given to people, right? But people don't understand what reparations mean. Reparations is to repair a relationship that was damaged by taking something that should have been rightfully someone's earnings or something that belonged to them unjustly or unlawfully. People like to say this is entitlement. These are entitlements. These are entitlements. But what was more entitlement than slave owners who worked Black men and Black women and Black children, but worked them from sun up to sundown, 6, sometimes 7 days a week, profited to the point where the Southern economy rivaled that of the federal government. It was such a threat to the sovereignty of America that we went to civil war in the 1860s. That's not entitlement. But anyway, our supposed allies killed this bill because those in the Black California Congressional Caucus really had no intentions of passing this. It all was a dog and pony show. Supposedly they killed the bill because they knew that Governor Gavin Newsom was going to veto this. So really, they really had no intentions of passing this. And yesterday, or whatever the day, I thought it was yesterday, was the last session until December. Gavin Newsom said something about, we need to do more study, more research. Man, haven't they been researching and studying these things since the 1980s? So look, in California, the most liberal state in the union. Remember, I did a video laughing at Trump foolishly thinking that he can win California. California, you don't get bluer than California. 40 of the 54 United States representatives from the state of California are Democrats. 75% of the state legislature is Democratic. So the argument about Republican opposition doesn't fly here. They could easily pass it. They got the numbers. They won't do it. They never will do anything for us. They won't do it. Remember, it was the Black Congressional Caucus that had, I'm talking about when it comes to federal government, United States government, that co-sponsored the crime bill that they knew would disproportionately hurt the Black community. back in the 90s. I hate to say this, but look, when you look at all the majority black cities in this country, the vast representation of the local government, city council, all of that, mayors, legislatures, and even within the state structure for the most part. Illinois, Michigan, Maryland, Georgia. Now, Georgia and Illinois, there's a lot more Republican opposition, but Maryland and Michigan, there's a bit of more of a Democratic majority. California is no excuse, but even when the local, when I'm talking about Chicago, when I'm talking about Baltimore, when I'm talking about Atlanta, when I'm talking about St. Louis, these are all vast majority Democratic cities. So what's the excuse? What's the excuse? I agree with Philip Scott this time. I've always been like, look, man, I don't blame people usually for sitting out elections. But I do agree with him that this is a pivotal election, man. This is a time where we have to collectively go out and vote. I agree with him with his assessment. We can't sit this election out. Now, I'm not a Republican. I'm not a Trump supporter. But I think that we have to protest the Democratic Party. If that means we got to vote Republican, do it. If that means you got to vote for the Libertarian Party or vote for the Green Party, whatever third party, do it. Even if you got to vote for yourself, do that. I do think that this is a power play. This is a pivotal election. They see us as jokes. They laugh at us. They mock us. They talk to us like we're children because they don't respect us politically. Politically, they look at us as fools, as powerless fools. It's time. It's time. I'm sorry. It's time that we have to make that political power play. I've been calling out the Democratic Party. Anybody that knows me can contest to this and confirm it. I've always thought the Democratic Party was full of shit since I was 12 years old. 12 years old. I never fully trusted them. There was a period of time when I did look at them as the lesser of two evils during the Bush years, but the Obama years started opening my eyes even more to the point where it's gotten to the point now where it's so ridiculous as to how much they look at us as fools. They use rappers and washed up comedians to be our leaders. We don't actually have real black leaders like every other community has actual proven leaders who know what they're talking about, who have usually supposed to have the best interests of their groups at heart. I'm not talking about the politicians, I'm talking about the actual community leaders. We have leaders, but they don't really have a voice. The Democratic Party muddles them. They muddle their voices, the ones who really are for us. The black people who represent for the most part, the actual elected black leaders don't have our best interests at heart. They enjoy their individual political power as long as they realize that they're going to always be compromised. They have to show that they're compromised and that that their individual best interests, or their best interest, I should say, is never the community, but their own self-serving interests, whether it's to enrich themselves, their loved ones, and advance their careers. Why do you think there's so much political corruption with black politicians? Because that's pretty much, they've always been compromised. I mean, politicians have always been corrupt, but they're especially corrupt because they're always going to be powerless pawns. And when the system is done with them, they'll expose them, dispose them, and replace them with some other fresh pawn. So what we got to do is vote them out. In my opinion, what we should do is, especially the especially heinous ones, the career criminals or the career stepping fetches, they need to be primaried out, because generally speaking, you're not going to beat them in general elections, because oftentimes they run unopposed or they run in cities that are majority black. So a Republican or a third party candidate probably is not going to beat them. So what you got to do is primary them, knock them out. The other side do it. Remember back when the Tea Party movement happened? They knocked out all the Republicans that they didn't like. They did that. Now watch somebody listen to this video and stupidly say, "Oh, I told you he was a Trump supporter." Just ignorant. Can't listen. This is not a two-party thing. This is getting the party that supposedly is our ally to stop taking us for granted and looking at us as jokes. So yeah, now I'm advocating, I agree with Phil that we got to vote. But in my opinion, we can't vote for the Democratic Party this time. We have to do a protest. That's all I got to say about it. Tell me what you guys think.